In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Please be seated. So when I was growing up, I had the benefit of having both sets of grandparents in my life. They'd come over and babysit, or we'd go over to their house for dinner. On my mother's side, my grandparents lived right by church, so we would often go there for lunch after the service in the morning. And my grandma always had her table beautifully set, all set, all ready. She had a roast in the oven, and we would come in, and she would take out the roast, and she'd call it the gravy, the meat juices on the bread for us as a snack. So good. And then we'd help her get, everything ready to eat and put stuff out on the table. The football game was going on in the living room. But when it was time to sit down, everything was turned off. We sat around the table. We talked about our lives, and it was calm and relaxing and wonderful. I remember those lunches. Now, on my dad's side of the family, think Italian. It was a totally different experience. We'd go there. Now, I have to say, my Grandma Catanella was a good cook. And sometimes my grandpa made pizza. I mean, the food there was always special. But it was chaos. And my grandma never sat down because people were always telling her what to do. I need more drink. I need this. Ma, get me that. Ma, get me that. My mother hated that. It just drove her crazy that they wouldn't even let so my mother, she would not eat till my grandma sat down. And my dad would say, oh, come on. This is just how it is. You just have to accept it the way it is. This is the way we do it in our family. Just eat. And every once in a while, my grandma would sit down, and then someone would go, Ma, I need water, Ma, I need water. And she'd jump back up. And she'd have like 2 minutes to eat after the meal because my grandpa wanted the table clean so they could play cards. And, my mother would say to me, don't ever treat me like that. Do not ever treat me like that. And do not ever let anyone treat you like that. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't get it. That was normal. Just like it was normal the way my other grandma was. It was normal. But once you know, right? Once you learn about what's right, and then there's no excuse. So I made it a practice myself, even as a child, never to ask my grandma to get me anything. I got my own water. I got my own second helping. And I always helped her clean up afterwards so that it'd go fast, so that she could sit down, Because once you know about justice and kindness, once you know how to treat people with decency and respect, and then there's no excuse not to. So Isaiah, we hear the call of Isaiah. Isaiah's in the temple. He's ridden with guilt. He's overwhelmed by the sinfulness of Israel. It's Epiphany. We're hearing call stories. Remember last year we heard the call story, last week. Seems like last year. But it was last week. We heard the call story of Jeremiah. How did God reach out to Jeremiah? God said, I want you. Jeremiah said, I'm not good enough. What did God do with Jeremiah? How did God make Jeremiah know that he was ready? Do you remember? He touched his tongue, right? So what does God do to Isaiah? Right, a burning coal. I mean, wouldn't you rather be Jeremiah in this moment? I mean, okay, all right, okay, I got it. But he needed that transformation. He needed that moment. And once he got it, once he knew God's love, once he knew God's words, once he understood what God was asking him to do, there was no going back. And when God said, I need someone, who am I going to send here? Isaiah said, me. Send me. Here I am. Because once you know, and you can't go back. So another call story in the gospel, Jesus is traveling and teaching, and he's in a spot on the beach where it's not a good venue. So he gets in a boat. He asks poor Peter, who's been fishing all night and catching nothing, can I just use your boat for a few minutes? And he teaches the crowd, and then he says, why don't we go fishing? And Peter's like, you might know about teaching, but I know about fishing, buddy. And there's no fish out there. We already tried this. but if you say so, we'll go. And of course, they catch too many fish. They can't even hold them all. And then Peter realizes who Jesus is going to be to him, who Jesus is going to be to the world. Peter gets it. And you can understand his skepticism. I mean, in his day and ours, there are many prophets out there making a lot of promises, most of which didn't come to anything. So when Peter realizes it's the real thing, when he's called to be a disciple, to be a follower, he's overwhelmed. He falls on his knees, right? Jesus says, come. Peter says, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. And Jesus says, come on, I'm going to make you fish for people. And what a great phrase, right? That's a catchy little moment there. It's a phrase we don't forget. And Peter's such a great example. You know, Peter's one of my favorite disciples, apostles, because some days he's doing great. Some days he's 100%. Sometimes he gets it. And other times, total failure. We'll see over the next couple months as we follow the story of Luke and the story Luke tells that Peter has his high moments and he has his low moments. But he learns from everyone. He's a little bit better with each one. And he understands Jesus and who Jesus is and who he is and how to be a disciple a little bit more. Because once you know, you know. And then if you don't do it, it's on you, right? But once you know, you know. So at the 10:30 service tonight, we are baptizing Benny, who is just learning to walk and is adorable. You can take my word for it. And we're going to make promises on his behalf. We're going to make hard promises on his behalf. And that's why he has godparents and parents and us to make those promises with him and for him. And to give him an example so that he can grow up to be a loving Christian man. And sometimes Ben will be great and he'll have spectacular successes, and sometimes he will not. Sometimes he'll take risks that do not pan out and he will make mistakes. But we'll be with him. We'll be helping him. We'll be forming him. Because we know what the promises are. We know what the expectation is. We know what it means to be a disciple and to intentionally and in a disciplined way live that out. One of my friends on Facebook was whining this week. Well, now nobody's ever going to be able to be a movie star, or no one's ever going to be able to be a politician, or a sports hero because of the things they did in their youth. They're never going to be forgiven. Like blah blah blah. We all had indiscretions in our youth. I'm not telling you mine, but I'm sure you had them too. Right? I mean, we all did stupid things. We all hurt people's feelings. We all said things that we didn't understand or didn't really think through. We are all a product of our culture. We all are. But from this moment on, no excuses. Right? From this moment on, we treat women with respect. From this moment on, there are no racial slurs. From this moment on, we do not make jokes that are not funny and that hurt people. From this moment on, we expect people to hold us accountable as Christians for how we treat people with dignity and respect. We know what love is. We know what love is. We have been given incredible love. And we know that we are expected to share that love in the world with all people. When we sin, we are going to be held accountable for that, and we will, right? We're not perfect. We're going to. It's whenever you fall into sin, not if, in our baptismal vows. But we know better. We know what's expected. We know we are to treat every person with dignity and respect and love them as much as we love the person we love the most. No excuses, no exceptions.